war stretched across 1,000 stars, consuming entire civilizations like fire racing through a forest. For centuries, the Varn Dominion, a race of hyper-advanced conquerors, had systematically dismantled every species that dared stand in their way. Their fleets were endless, their technology unmatched, and their dominion stretched like a shadow across the galaxy. Resistance was futile. Everyone knew that. Everyone except humanity. By the time humanity joined the galactic stage, the war was already winding down. The last great alliance of species had been crushed decades ago, and the Varn were busy consolidating their power. Earth was just another unremarkable planet orbiting an unremarkable star, a blip on the galactic map. But when the Varn discovered humanity, they didn't see a threat. They saw something useful. The Varn had no need for Earth's crude technology or its fragile ships. What they wanted was manpower. Humans were adaptable, resilient, and resourceful, a perfect addition to the labor force needed to maintain the Dominion's vast empire. And so, the Varn offered Earth a choice: submit peacefully and serve the Dominion, or resist and be annihilated. Earth's leaders debated for weeks. The histories of other species were clear. Resistance was suicide. Entire civilizations had been wiped out for less. But humanity was different. They had a history of defiance, a knack for turning impossible odds into improbable victories. When the Varn envoy returned for Earth's answer, they were met with silence. No capitulation, no submission, just the quiet hum of orbital defenses coming online. The war that followed was brutal. Humanity's ships, cobbled together from outdated technology and raw ingenuity, were no match for the sleek, hyper-advanced fleets of the Varn. Cities fell. Entire continents were scorched. Yet humanity refused to break. Every time the Varn thought they had crushed Earth's resistance, the humans surprised them. Guerrilla tactics, improvised weapons, and relentless tenacity turned the tide, if only briefly. The Varn grew frustrated. They had crushed empires far more powerful than humanity with less effort. Why were these primitive creatures so difficult to subdue? They began to study humanity, dissecting their history, their psychology, their culture. What they found was both fascinating and terrifying. Humans thrived on adversity. The more hopeless the situation, the harder they fought. They weren't just surviving, they were adapting. Still, the Varn were confident in their inevitable victory. Humanity's resources were limited. Their technology was primitive. The war was dragging on longer than expected, but the outcome was certain. The Dominion always won. Until the day everything changed. The moment came during what the Varn believed to be the final battle. They had gathered their largest fleet in orbit over Earth, ready to deliver the killing blow. Resistance was scattered, Earth's defenses in shambles. The Varn commander broadcast a message across all frequencies: surrender now, or face total destruction. Silence followed. Then came the reply. It wasn't from Earth's government or its battered military. It was a transmission from a single human ship, a small frigate barely holding together after weeks of combat. The voice that came through was calm, almost conversational. "We decline," it said. "But before you proceed, there's something you should know." The Varn commander almost dismissed the transmission as pointless bravado, but curiosity got the better of him. "And what, human, should we know?" "Look at the sun," the voice replied. The commander frowned, his gaze shifting to the tactical displays. Nothing seemed unusual. Earth's star burned as it always had, a yellow dwarf of no particular significance. "What am I supposed to be seeing?" "Not yet," the human said. "Wait for it." The seconds ticked by. Then, the sun changed. At first, it was subtle, a faint ripple in the star's outer layers. Then the light began to dim, the star's surface bubbling and writhing as if something inside it was struggling to break free. The Varn fleet's sensors went wild, alarms blaring as energy readings spiked to unprecedented levels. And then it happened. The sun erupted. Not in a supernova, as the Varn feared, but in a controlled release of energy so precise, so impossibly calculated, that it defied all logic. A wave of light and heat swept through the Varn fleet, not destroying their ships but rendering them useless. Power systems overloaded. Weapons fell silent. Engines shut down. The fleet hung in orbit, a lifeless armada of drifting metal. What is this? The Varn commander demanded, his voice trembling. The human's voice returned, calm as ever. That's the thing about humanity, he said. You think we're primitive because we don't have your fancy technology, but we've always been good at thinking differently. That's what makes us dangerous. The Varn commander stared at the displays, disbelief etched across his face. Somehow, humanity had weaponized their own star, turning it into a tool of unimaginable power. The technology required to achieve such a feat was beyond anything the Varn had ever encountered. It wasn't just ingenuity, it was audacity on a cosmic scale. The human continued. You thought you were fighting a war against a backward species. What you didn't realize is that we're not like the others you've conquered. We don't play by your rules. And when you push us to the brink, we don't break. We innovate. The transmission ended, and for the first time in their long history of conquest, the Varn felt something they had never experienced before. Fear. The war didn't end that day, but the balance of power shifted irrevocably. Humanity, once seen as a minor nuisance, became a force to be reckoned with. Their ability to turn desperation into triumph inspired resistance across the galaxy. Other species, emboldened by humanity's defiance, began to rise against the Dominion. And the Varn? They learned a lesson they would never forget. Humanity wasn't just another conquest. They were something else entirely. Something that could change the course of history in a single day. The war was almost over, until humanity rewrote the rules. The Varn Dominion scrambled to respond, their advanced minds struggling to comprehend what had just transpired. Their largest fleet was crippled, reduced to floating debris in the wake of a single human action. The commander of the fleet, once brimming with confidence, was now frantically sending out orders for repairs and reinforcements. But deep within him, a gnawing fear had taken root. Humanity had not just fought back. They had turned the very fabric of the universe against them. For the first time in his life, Commander Thal was uncertain. He had studied hundreds of species, analyzing their cultures, their weaknesses, their histories, and had always found a way to crush them. But humanity was different. Their resilience wasn't just in their bodies or their weapons. It was in their minds, their hearts, and their spirit. This unpredictable, stubborn species was something the Dominion had never encountered. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The story of Earth's victory over the Varn fleet became a symbol of hope. Rebel groups across the galaxy, who had long been oppressed and scattered, suddenly found themselves emboldened. The human ingenuity that had turned their sun into a weapon was now a beacon for all who sought to end the Dominion's reign. In the days that followed, Earth's leaders met in secret, formulating a plan not just to defend their planet, but to deliver a decisive blow. They knew the Varn would regroup. They would come back with a vengeance. But humanity had time. Time to prepare, to innovate, to gather allies. This was no longer just a fight for Earth. It was a fight for the entire galaxy. Lyra Vin, one of Earth's top scientists, was among the leaders summoned to a high-security meeting. The plan was clear. They would weaponize every star within their reach, every power core they could harness, and turn the Varn's greatest advantage against them. Humanity had already learned how to bend light and matter. Now they would learn how to manipulate the very force of gravity itself. The Varn had underestimated the human ability to innovate under pressure, and they would pay dearly for it. Do you think this will be enough? Aaron Locke, a war hero who had become Earth's most trusted military strategist, asked as he stood beside Lyra, staring out at the war maps displayed on the vast screens before them. The Varn are relentless. Even with these new weapons, we're still outnumbered. Lyra's eyes sparkled with determination. It's not about numbers anymore. It's about showing them that they've underestimated us. The Varn know war, but they don't know humanity. We will do the unthinkable, and it will change everything. The battle plan was set in motion. Humanity's best engineers, scientists, and military leaders worked day and night, forging new weapons, refining the technology that had given them their first victory. The alliance with other species, which had once been a dream, was now a reality. They pooled their resources, their knowledge, and their technology in a shared effort to take down the Dominion once and for all. The fleet of ragtag ships that had once been the underdogs now stood united, a force larger than any the Varn could have imagined. Meanwhile, Commander Thal, after suffering his defeat, was summoned to the Dominion's High Council. The fear he had felt after humanity's unexpected weaponization of their sun had only intensified. His reports were met with disbelief. The council demanded immediate retaliation, eager to prove that their power could not be challenged, especially by such a primitive species. The Varn had always been the apex of the galaxy, and they intended to remain so. But as the Dominion's High Council plotted their next move, Thal had one question that lingered in his mind. What if they had made a mistake? Humanity's audacity had cracked something in his perception, something he could not ignore. He had seen their ingenuity firsthand. If humans could harness the energy of a sun, what else could they do? What other tricks did they have up their sleeves? The day of reckoning arrived swiftly. Humanity, bolstered by their newfound alliance and their relentless innovations, launched an all-out offensive. Every star they had transformed into a weapon, every ship they had built with their crude but effective technology, was now a part of the battle. The Varn had brought reinforcements, but even with their overwhelming numbers, they were ill-prepared for what awaited them. The battle took place on the edge of a dying galaxy, where stars had already begun to burn out, their light fading into the darkness. Humanity's fleet approached with calculated precision, using every trick they had learned. Instead of engaging directly, they unleashed a series of electromagnetic pulses, frying the Varn's advanced technology, leaving their ships defenseless. The surprise was complete. But humanity's true weapon came when they reached the center of the Varn fleet. The human ships released a wave of energy that reverberated through the entire battle zone. They had taken the technology they'd used to disable the sun and amplified it, sending out a powerful pulse of energy that cracked the very fabric of the Varn fleet's command structure. The massive starships that had once been the vanguard of the Dominion's power began to collapse inward, their own gravitational fields turned against them. Lyra's voice came over the comms. It's working. We've turned their own systems against them. All ships are disabled. They have no command left. Thal's flagship, the largest and most powerful of the Varn warships, struggled to stay operational. As the Varn fleet fell apart, Thal saw his last chance slip away. The humans weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to win. In a final act of defiance, Thal ordered his flagship to charge the remaining human vessels, hoping to take down as many as possible in a kamikaze attack. But before he could give the final order, something unexpected happened. The human ships, once struggling to survive, now came together. They formed a united front, their weapons synchronized. They didn't just defeat the Varn. They obliterated their entire command structure in one swift blow. The war, which had seemed all but lost for humanity, was over. The Varn Dominion crumbled in the face of humanity's determination and ingenuity. The galaxy, once enslaved by the Varn, now stood free, thanks to a species that had never given up. Humanity had changed everything in a single day. No longer just survivors, they had proven that even against the most advanced species in the galaxy, they could rise, fight, and overcome. The Dominion was gone, and the galaxy would never be the same. And in the silence that followed the war's end, the universe knew one thing for certain. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the galaxy's new rulers, and they would never be underestimated again. The victory celebrations across the galaxy were deafening. The war-torn planets, once under the thumb of the Varn Dominion, now echoed with the sounds of liberation. Species that had long lived in fear could finally breathe freely, knowing the oppression of the Varn was over. But amidst the jubilation, there was an undeniable undercurrent of unease. Humanity had emerged from the conflict as the galaxy's new power. But what came next? With the Dominion's collapse, there was a power vacuum that no one could ignore. Other species, some of them once allies of the Varn, saw the human victory as an opportunity, a chance to carve out their own space in this newly reshaped universe. Earth's leaders, now hailed as heroes, faced difficult choices. They could return to their isolated, self-centered ways, trying to preserve their planet and its people from the broader galactic politics. Or they could step forward, take the reins, and lead the galaxy into a new era. One where humanity's spirit of ingenuity and defiance would guide the future. The decision wasn't easy. The wounds of the war still ran deep, and there were factions on Earth that called for complete isolationism. But the voice of those who believed in humanity's potential to create something greater, a galaxy where freedom, unity, and innovation thrived, grew louder. The choice was made. Humanity would lead. In the months following the war, a council was formed, a coalition of representatives from Earth and the newly freed species. Lyra Vin, once a scientist, now found herself at the forefront of this new galaxy. Her brilliance, alongside the strategic genius of Aaron Locke and the diplomatic prowess of Earth leaders, became the foundation of the new galactic order. But Lyra knew that their success was not guaranteed. They had just overthrown one oppressive regime. There were many others waiting in the shadows, watching the rise of humanity with suspicion and fear. As Earth's influence spread across the galaxy, new threats began to emerge. Some came from within, as rival factions within humanity and their allies vied for control of the new power. Others came from external sources, alien races that had once been vassals of the Varn, now emboldened by the void left in the Dominion's wake. One such faction, known as the Tyrax, a ruthless and calculating race of cybernetic beings, viewed humanity's rise as a challenge. They had been monitoring the post-war chaos and saw an opportunity to strike. Unlike the Varn, the Tyrax didn't rely on brute force alone. They were patient, methodical, and technologically advanced in ways humanity had yet to fully comprehend. The first sign of the Tyrax came in the form of a cryptic transmission. It was intercepted by Earth's military networks, a garbled message encoded in a pattern that was almost too perfect to be random. When Lyra and Aaron listened to the transmission, they both felt a chill. It wasn't a declaration of war. It wasn't a demand. It was a warning. We've seen what you've done. We've seen the fire you've kindled. But remember this. Stars burn bright and beautiful, but they burn out. Your sun will die like all the others. And when it does, we will be there. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving only silence in its wake. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. The Tyrax knew about the human sun weapon. They knew what humanity was capable of, and they were prepared to exploit it or destroy it. Are they threatening us? Aaron asked, his face tight with concern. No, Lyra replied, her mind racing. They're not threatening us. They're predicting our fall. They're challenging us to prove we can keep the fire burning. But how could humanity prove it? How could they fight an enemy who seemed to know their every move before they made it? Lyra spent sleepless nights poring over the Tyrax transmission, deciphering every hidden meaning, every subtle clue. The more she studied, the more she realized that the Tyrax were not just observing humanity. They were trying to understand them, trying to learn from them. The question was why? Why would a race like the Tyrax, cold, calculating, and mechanical, be so focused on humanity? Then it hit her. They see us as a threat because we represent something they can't understand, she murmured aloud. They see the unpredictability of humanity, the capacity for creativity, for evolution, and they're afraid of it. The Varn couldn't crush that spirit, and now the Tyrax will try to. Aaron stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. So, we prepare for war? We prepare to change the game, Lyra replied, a fire kindling in her eyes. We can't play their game. We have to play ours. The first step was to find the Tyrax before they could strike. Humanity, with its newly formed galactic network, deployed every asset they had, advanced reconnaissance drones, covert operatives, and intelligence gatherers. For weeks, they monitored every system within reach. But the Tyrax were elusive, slipping through their grasp like shadows. Then, just when hope seemed to wane, they found something. A trace of Tyrax activity near the outer rim, far from the reach of the newly formed Galactic Council. It was there that humanity made its move. A small fleet, led by Lyra herself, embarked on a daring mission to confront the Tyrax. With a mix of Earth's technology, alien ingenuity, and human determination, they would force the Tyrax to reveal their intentions. The battle would be risky, and the outcome uncertain. But one thing was certain, humanity would not be caught off guard again. They had already proven they could rise from the ashes of defeat. Now, they would prove they could change the future of the galaxy once more. As the fleet approached the Tyrax stronghold, Lyra stood at the helm of her ship, gazing out into the dark expanse of space. She could feel the weight of everything on her shoulders, the future of humanity, the future of the galaxy. But she also felt something else. Hope. The kind of hope that burned brightly, like a supernova ready to shine through the darkness. Humanity had already changed the course of history. Now, they would change the future, once again, and this time, they would do it on their terms. The Tyrax stronghold loomed ahead, a massive fortress built into the heart of a black hole's event horizon. The structure seemed to warp reality itself, as if the laws of physics bent to accommodate its existence. Lyra's fleet moved into position, the ships cutting through the cold, dark space with precision. The anticipation was palpable, but even with the fleet in motion, a lingering question gnawed at the back of her mind. What would they find when they arrived? The Tyrax had always been elusive, almost ghost-like. Their presence had been marked by subtle disturbances, strange fluctuations in the fabric of space-time. But no direct contact had ever been made. What did they want with humanity? Why had they chosen now to make their move? Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that there was something bigger at play. Something beyond the war they just won. Something the galaxy had never anticipated. Aaron stood beside her on the bridge, his face taut with concentration. Lyra, we're entering the outer perimeter. We should start our approach to the station. Lyra nodded, though her thoughts were elsewhere. This is it, she thought. The moment that defines the next era of humanity's existence. Not just survival, but dominance. Prepare the fleet for immediate assault, she ordered, her voice steady. All ships, engage when we signal. And remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species we've liberated. Her crew sprang into action, coordinating with military precision. Earth's fleet wasn't large, but it had the heart of 1,000 worlds. They had learned from the Varn and adapted. They knew how to exploit weaknesses. They had technology the Tyrax wouldn't expect. As the fleet closed in on the Tyrax fortress, Lyra saw it for the first time in all its horrifying beauty. A massive structure that seemed to defy both logic and imagination. Its surface pulsed with energy, glowing like the heart of a star trapped within a prison of metal. Around it, the black hole's event horizon rippled with unnatural calm, its gravitational pull distorting the space around them. Launch drones, Lyra ordered, and make sure our ships remain in formation. We need to avoid being caught in their gravity field. The fleet released their swarms of drones, which scattered in every direction, each one designed to collect information and disrupt any incoming fire. Lyra watched the digital displays as the drones mapped the Tyrax station's defenses. Every piece of data was a step closer to understanding what they were up against. As they moved closer to the fortress, something shifted. The station's surface began to shimmer, and then, without warning, a massive rift opened, revealing a colossal Tyrax warship, far larger than anything humanity had ever seen. The ship's black metallic surface was almost liquid-like, constantly shifting and evolving, its hull radiating a faint, eerie glow. It moved toward them with unnatural speed. "We're being targeted," shouted one of the officers. Lyra's pulse quickened. "All ships, brace for impact. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." Before the command was even fully given, the Tyrax ship unleashed a volley of energy beams, each one strong enough to tear apart entire fleets. The human ships darted out of the way, evading the initial blast, but the beams kept coming, relentless and precise. The atmosphere on the bridge grew tense, the crew moving in coordinated chaos to keep the fleet intact. "Lyra, this thing is too powerful. We won't survive another wave like that," Aaron warned. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she watched the incoming fire and calculated their next move. "We're not here to survive," she thought. "We're here to change the game." "Deploy the star disruptors," Lyra commanded, a quiet resolve in her voice. "Activate the energy grid now." The crew worked swiftly to deploy the weapons. Star disruptors were a last resort weapon, an invention born from humanity's ingenuity and desperation. They were designed to momentarily destabilize the energy cores of enemy ships, rendering them powerless for a brief period. It was a risky move, but Lyra had no choice. The star disruptors fired, sending a pulse of concentrated energy into the heart of the Tyrax warship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Tyrax ship's surface began to ripple, as if the weapon had breached its shields. The massive ship staggered, its movements erratic as its internal systems began to overload. "We've got them," one of the officers exclaimed. "They're losing control." Lyra didn't hesitate. Full power to forward shields. "All ships engage." Humanity's fleet moved in, unleashing everything they had. The Tyrax warship was powerful, but it was no match for the sheer adaptability and resourcefulness of humanity's forces. The barrage of fire from Earth's ships pierced the Tyrax defenses, and in a final, climactic moment, the massive ship erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, sending debris and energy scattering across space. But even as the Tyrax flagship fell, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. This was too easy. They had expected a fight, something more calculated. But the Tyrax had almost seemed to welcome it. "We did it," Aaron said, exhaling in relief. Lyra's brow furrowed. "Not yet," she replied. "There's something we're missing." As the last of the Tyrax warship disintegrated into space, a strange, unnatural silence filled the air. The gravitational distortions from the black hole seemed to shift again, and the station's core pulsed brighter, a wave of energy sweeping across the battlefield. It was then that Lyra understood. This wasn't just a Tyrax stronghold. It was a trap. Without warning, the event horizon of the black hole began to expand, pulling everything within its reach toward it. The very fabric of space began to warp around them. The Tyrax weren't defeated. They were simply waiting for the perfect moment. Lyra's voice was sharp and urgent. "All ships, retreat. Now." But it was too late. The gravitational pull of the black hole accelerated, pulling the fleet closer, the pull of its immense gravity now impossible to escape. Ships strained against the force, their engines roaring in a desperate attempt to break free. Lyra's mind raced. She had to think. There had to be a way to escape. And then she saw it. A small flicker of light amidst the chaos. One of the Tyrax ships, seemingly untouched by the explosion, had emerged from the wreckage. It was heading toward the event horizon at incredible speed. "They've rigged it," Lyra realized, her voice filled with dread. "They wanted us to come here. They want to drag us into the black hole and use its energy to power their fleets." The Tyrax had played the long game. They hadn't just fought to defeat humanity. They had been waiting for this moment. They were preparing for the next phase of their plan. And this time, humanity would have to face a force even greater than they could have ever imagined. The realization hit like a shockwave. This was no longer just a battle for survival. The Tyrax had engineered this entire situation, using their knowledge of human ingenuity and their mastery over gravity to trap humanity at the precipice of annihilation. But Lyra Vin was not one to give in to despair. She had seen humanity face impossible odds and emerge victorious time and time again. This was no different. "All ships, listen up," Lyra barked, her voice commanding attention amidst the panic. "We have one chance to make it out of here. I know this seems impossible, but if we work together, every ship, every crew, we can reverse the gravitational pull long enough to break free." Aaron, standing beside her, nodded. "It's going to be tight. We don't have much time before the black hole's gravity becomes unmanageable. But it's the only shot we've got." The fleet had already begun retreating, their engines straining against the relentless force of the black hole. The Tyrax ship, which had emerged unscathed from the explosion, was pulling ahead, seemingly undeterred by the gravitational forces. Lyra's fingers flew over the control panel, accessing every ship's systems. The fleet had one advantage: the human fleet's diverse technologies and adaptive capabilities. Lyra had to bring every bit of that innovation together in one final, desperate gambit. If she could synchronize the fleet's energy outputs and combine them with the black hole's gravitational forces, perhaps, just perhaps, they could create a reverse flux, a shockwave powerful enough to escape the black hole's grasp. "Aaron, I need you to handle the tactical coordination. Align the ships in a precise formation. Every ship's power output must be channeled through the main core, just like we did with the Varn weapons." He raised an eyebrow. Are you telling me to make our ships fire their engines into a black hole? You're either a genius or out of your mind. Lyra smiled grimly, a glimmer of defiance in her eyes. Both. We've got one shot, and we're going to take it. Aaron wasted no time organizing the fleet, communicating with the various commanders who had joined humanity's alliance. Across the fleet, ships began to align, engines glowing brighter, synchronized with a single heartbeat. The gravitational pull from the black hole was now nearing its peak, but Lyra's plan was taking shape. Prepare the energy fields, Lyra ordered, her voice calm but resolute. On my mark, we fire everything at once. We use the black hole's gravity as a catalyst. It'll create an energy pulse that should give us enough momentum to escape. The fleet began to hum in unison, every ship focusing its power in an almost sacred synchronization. Lyra, her hands trembling slightly, kept her eyes on the screen. The Tyrax ship was still moving ahead, unaware of the human counterattack. This was their moment. The countdown began in Lyra's mind. 3 seconds. 2. 1. Now, she shouted. The entire fleet erupted in a burst of energy. Engines roared to life as every ship sent its power toward the black hole's event horizon. The gravitational waves began to shift, reversing their pull for a split second as the combined forces of the fleet pushed against the black hole's force. It was as though time itself bent. Light distorted. Space cracked. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with an ear-splitting roar, the universe seemed to implode. The human fleet was catapulted forward in a singular burst of light, the black hole's gravity no longer holding them back. But it wasn't just the fleet that was impacted. The entire region of space around the black hole erupted in a series of shockwaves, causing a cascade effect that destabilized the Tyrax ship. The Tyrax had been caught off guard. They hadn't anticipated the human response. No one had. Their flagship systems, already stretched thin from the battle and the gravitational disruption, finally gave way. The Tyrax ship began to crumble, its hull disintegrating under the intense pressure. Within moments, it vanished into the rippling chaos of the black hole's event horizon, leaving nothing but cosmic dust in its wake. Humanity's fleet, though battered and bruised, was now clear of the black hole's pull. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the last remnants of the Tyrax forces vanish into the void. "We did it," Aaron said, his voice filled with disbelief. Lyra exhaled, but the weight of everything still hung over her. "We survived. But the war is far from over." The fleet drifted into the silence of space, the cosmic landscape around them eerily calm after the chaos. The immediate threat of the Tyrax had been neutralized, but the galaxy was still in turmoil. New power struggles, old alliances, and the ever-present undercurrent of hostility would continue to shape the future. But Lyra was certain of one thing. Humanity had changed everything. The Tyrax had underestimated them, just as the Varn had, and now they were no longer just a species on the brink of extinction. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with, one that could adapt, innovate, and overcome any challenge the galaxy could throw their way. Lyra looked out at the stars, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. "This is just the beginning," she said softly, her words carrying the weight of a future that was now in their hands. "We'll keep fighting. We'll keep evolving. And the galaxy will know that humanity is here to stay." The fleet, battered but unbroken, set course for the next chapter in their journey, one where humanity would rise once again, ready to face whatever the universe dared to throw at them. And as the stars blinked out into the infinite, humanity's light burned brighter than ever before.